Well, good morning and welcome to yet another segment of Beyond Boundaries. And I'm your host, Shaniqua Fleming. And today I get the pleasure of talking with Ray Shipman. And we're talking about something that I know many of us, maybe we think about it, we've heard about it, or we are not sure what it is. And it's reinventing yourself. So I'm really excited to talk with Ray because anytime we have a conversation, it's always enlightening, it's always fun, and definitely leaves me inspired. So good morning, Ray.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about who you are and give us a little bit of your background and your story.
Okay, well, first I'd like to start off by saying I was born and raised here in Miramar.
Wow.
Yeah, went to elementary school here, middle school, traveled across the county line for high school, but I'm a former athlete, played high school basketball, college basketball at University of Florida, football at University of Central Florida, and I was fortunate enough to play in the NFL for a bit.
Okay.
But the topic today I feel is perfect for me because I've had to reinvent myself after my football playing days came to an end, and now I'm the director of sports medicine at the Memorial Sports Medicine Center.
Okay, so reinvent yourself. So when I first thought about this whole thing of reinventing yourself, I didn't realize it was something that I was naturally doing. From as far back as I can remember, I've always been able to connect the dots and make a connection and kind of forecast where things are going. And I saw it first in my career. Like I started out thinking I was going to do, one thing, always knowing that it would be connected to people. And when I got into training and development, I realized that that was something that wouldn't always stay, but strategy would. And because I'm really good at connecting the dots, I always knew that that would be a part of what I did. And then it became greater than just connecting the dot and just connecting with people. So talk to me a little bit about, like, what do you see in terms of what's your thing and what has it been about you that you've been reinventing?
Well, just in sports, and I credit all of my success in sports and after sports to both my parents. My mom has been an educator for over 25 years.
Wow.
She's going to be mad if I'm telling her how long she's been in.
She started very young.
She started young. And my dad, he actually just retired from the City of Miami Police Department. So I had a great foundation, and they always instilled in me to always have life after sports.
Right.
Be prepared because sports is going to end someday. So I always knew I was going to have to reinvent myself. I just didn't know when. When I was a kid, I always said I want to be the first NBA and NFL player. Didn't get there, but I was fortunate to have some time professionally.
Right.
But always in the back of my mind, I always kept focused on, okay, when the ball stops bouncing, what am I going to do? So when that time did come, I think I was a little more prepared than some athletes that you see nowadays. And that's why I make it a big priority of mine to speak to current college and high school athletes to let them know and be aware of some of the things that are going to happen when sports are over.
Right.
So like I said, I credit to my parents instilling an education, falling back on my education. I always furthered my education. Actually, when I finished playing in the NFL, one of the first things I did was finish my master's. So I went back and got my MBA. So it was reinventing myself, but always being conscious through my process because I had blinders on what I want to do. I want to play professional sports. So I didn't let reinventing myself deter me from my focus, but I knew when that time would arrive, I would be prepared
to do what was next for you.
Exactly.
I love that, and that's a conversation that we have in our house, especially with our middle son, who's a football player as well, and he loves the game. I mean, loves it. And so, he told us a long time ago, I'm going to play football. And so our thing to him is, okay, I don't talk to them about a plan B, because when you create a plan B, it says that you're doubting yourself from the start. So what I always say to him is, what's your retirement plan? Because like you said, you're going to retire from playing football at some point, whether it's you retire after Optimus, high school, college, or you go on to play at the highest level of the game. There's going to come a point when you're not going to play anymore, and what will be your retirement plan? So I really like that. I want to back up a little bit to, you said when you first when you finished playing in the NFL and you decided that there was something next for you. What was that transition like? What were you thinking about? Like, what pushed you to say, what's next?
The transition was tough, I'll be honest with you. And a lot of you know athletes, and you'll see it in the news, you'll see it around a lot of current events. We have a hard time transitioning because our whole lives we've been focused on being pro athletes. And We're spoon-fed a lot of the times throughout our journeys, whether it's in academics. We've seen athletes get passed through.
Right.
But the transition was, like I mentioned, I always knew that the time was going to come, but it was tough.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I needed to do good in school,
Right.
but in a lot of non-athletes, once we finish our degrees, we don't know what we're going to do with
Right.
our degrees. But for me, it was always new. I was a good people's person. I would hear that from a lot of my peers. You're great with people. So I started my nonprofit organizations right after I finished playing ball, before I even started looking for a job. And didn't really know exactly what I was getting into or where it was going to lead me to.
Right.
Ironically, it led me to where I am now with Memorial. But just giving back, being a people's person and working in the community, doing different camps, different health fairs I was doing here in the city of Miramar
Right.
that I didn't know then, but was training me
Right.
and grooming me to some of the things that I was going to be doing. I'm now working in corporate
Right.
America. So it's, like we say, it's reinventing yourself, but in essence, it's really digging down in yourself and
Right.
honing in on things you already had that you may have not known
That's
you had.
it. That's absolutely it. And you said ironically, but I think it was intentional
Mm-hmm.
because when you think about Memorial Healthcare System, it's a very community-based, healthcare system. It's the safety net for the South Broward Hospital District,
Exactly.
South Broward community, I should say. And so you being, just an example of what it means to give and be in the community definitely connects with the vision and the mission of the healthcare system. So I think that was
It was a perfect marriage.
Yeah,
A
perfect marriage, right? And so you said something. It was about digging down and finding what was already in you. And that's really it. Reinventing yourself is not about becoming somebody different or
Exactly.
somebody new, but it really is expanding into who we really are. When I want to, I think back to when I was probably about 7 years old. I always tell the story about how I would teach the kids in my neighborhood because I had figured out, again, looking at patterns and seeing connections, that every summer we would end and, we get those thick workbooks, and at the end, you never finish what was at the end. And I noticed that the teachers would always start with that the next year. So I would ask for those things to go home in the summer and teach the kids to get them ready for next year. So that's always been a part of just what I did. I never wanted to be a teacher, but I saw the connection of being prepared for what was next. And so, and that's like, that has kind of followed, and I've kind of expanded in that all of my life. And, and it brings me to what I do today, where I'm always helping people get to their next, whether it's an organization get to their next level, whether it's a leader get to their next level, or somebody just figure out what their next step is. And you talked about athletes. I got the pleasure of working with a few athletes, helping them transition from, being a professional athlete to what's next for me. And that was, quite interesting because like you said, it was a challenge. Not that there weren't a lot of transferable skills, but it was just helping them to make that connection.
Exactly. Like you said, the transferable skills. I tell athletes all the time that we have intangibles as athletes that we've gained over our careers.
Absolutely.
That transition over into corporate America very well.
Right, or anywhere.
Anywhere, whatever
right?
you're doing, if you entrepreneurship or whatever it may be. Just to give a few examples, as athletes, we tend not to be able to do internships that normal college students can do. We can't get jobs, but the time management skills we have.
Right.
Waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning, going to practice, coming back to your dorm, studying, then having a few minutes to eat, then doing study hall over again, and then getting ready for tests and everything. So there's time management, working well with others. I was fortunate on some of my teams, I was a captain. So when it was ready for me to make that transition, those are some of the things I mentioned in my
leadership skills.
I mentioned in my interviews. Well, I didn't have an internship, and if you know the history of athletes, we can't because of our time constraints. But I was a captain.
Right.
I was voted as a captain amongst my peers.
Right.
So those are things, some of those tangible, transferable skills that we as athletes can use when we make that transition after sports.
Right. I want to go back to, I shared with you like one of my youngest memories of what I would be or who I would be. I didn't really know what it was, but what I was doing. What were you doing at about 6, 7, 8 years old?
It's so funny. It was kind of a setup like this, and me and my sister, my family always joke around. I was on a production crew for the morning announcements. I was the anchor. I was the fastest one at the school. I was always an athlete, but I was the MC at some of our evening events. I was
so always charismatic.
always. I actually ran for. I think I ran for president my 4th grade year. I remember that. I was always trying to be involved amongst my classmates. I wasn't just the jock.
Right.
That was the big thing. My parents never let me get cocky, it was some friends of mine. Oh, you're too humble. You're good in sports, right? You don't have to do extra work. Like in college, my teammates would pick at me. They would say Ships in the warm-up line with his book. Like we're getting ready for games and things like that. But I think that's what benefits me and that's what strengthens me. It gives me my confidence. I know I've been preparing for this. So when that transition came, it was just going back, like we said, not necessarily reinventing yourself of someone you aren't, but just digging deeper and finding those things.
Being more of who you are.
Exactly.
I love that. And so you talk about, being present in community. That was some of your youngest memories you just shared, showing up and helping others and being about a bigger cause. So transitioning from the NFL to now healthcare. I remember one of the first conversations we had about that, and I just thought it was brilliant. Like, who better to connect with patients that are rehabbing than someone that has probably been through quite a few rehab processes himself?
Exactly.
What was that like for you?
Well, I had a severe injury. Wasn't career ending, but it was at a time where, and anyone knows in NFL, when the cuts are there and the next man's up. But it's not as severe as some of the injuries that I see now at the Memorial Rehabilitation Institute. But I still, just some of the skills and traits I learned from the downs, the ups from sports, I was able to encourage some of our patients who have spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, who are going back into the community, not the same person they were before. But that doesn't necessarily mean that their life is over.
Absolutely a parallel, right?
Exactly.
And like you said, it may be not as severe, but there are definitely some takeaways that you have that you can share, and that's really what it's about. See, again, I'm connecting the dots.
There you go. Yep. We're clicking.
So when you think about, the sports rehabilitation program and what you bring, not just as an athlete that, is able to connect with the patients in a way that, some people often aren't, but a leader, leading that program, really growing that program. I've watched you in that program and I've watched the things that you've done. And what would you say it's been like from the time you started as the manager, I think at the time, and now being the director of the, the program?
It was tough at first, I'll totally be honest, but it was similar to what I was doing in my nonprofit. My nonprofit, it was grassrooted. It was an idea I had and I was by myself. And when I started at Memorial, I was a one-man show and I had to build that program up.
I remember.
I remember like it was yesterday, but it was just having that same game plan I had. It was more importantly, it was a program that was dear to my heart. It was something that I went home sleeping about, and it was something I saw the rewards in our patients. So it really didn't feel like work, but I really enjoyed that. And to where I am today, as a director, I have more of a team. And it's me and my playing field. It's me being a captain on my team. It's me not leading the ship from all of my direction, but working well with my other teammates and seeing their visions, what pushes them.
Absolutely. And that is like that's the thing, that when leaders actually get that part, that it's not about us, but it's really about what we do to make those around us better, then we see things go to the next level. We see organizations take off. We see people, be the best at whatever it is that they're doing and do things that they never even thought they could do. So you said something in our behind the scenes conversation, you talked about, when I think about what I've been able to do in my professional career and I think about sports, I see so many similarities. And what's the biggest one that you see as it relates to success and what helps you to be successful?
It's my coaches would always say, there's no secret to success in any industry. It's all about the work that you put in. It's the things that the community don't see. I have friends who will say, well, I saw you on this show. I see you're doing well. How did you do it? There's no secret potion. I worked hard, and whether it was sports, I would wake up. I remember now my high school coach, Mark Lieberman at Pace, we still talk to this day, almost once a week. I would wake up 6 a.m. We would work out before practice. Then we would practice in the afternoon, and I would work out again after that.
Wow.
And that transitions over to, I knew what that I was doing there. The work I put in there led to state championships. It led to a scholarship, 2 scholarships. So once you know that and you've seen the results of what hard work does, now in my career now it's the same thing. If it's me coming in early or me staying late and working smart.
Yes.
A lot of times we'll hear hard work and think I have to put in endless hours. No. But it's being intentional with your time.
Absolutely.
And perfecting that, and whatever success you come from that, just implementing that over and over to the next project.
Right. And, as I'm listening to you, I think the thing that I connect with most is, being value driven. Like, so allowing your values to really drive how you lead, how you live, and what are those things because if you make a commitment, oftentimes you never have to decide because you already know what it is that you're committed to and what it is you value, and then allowing those values to help shape your vision. So knowing what it is, like you said, you've always been able to see what you want, see what you're able to do. And I always laugh because you'll say, okay, Shaniqua, what's going on here? I'm like earlier this year you said I'm going to teach a class, and then maybe like 4 months later you're like, hey, I'm teaching this class, and I'm just like, yes, that's what you do.
Yeah, it's just having that vision and putting it out there into the atmosphere. It was plenty of times people ask me I can't remember, I read it somewhere. They said you have to put it out there in the atmosphere and let people know what you're doing. A lot of times we'll have ideas and we'll hold it in.
That's right.
I have to make sure it's perfect. I want the perfect business plan. Yeah. And I talk to my wife and my mom all the time, jumping off the porch. Go. You're gonna mess up, but just go ahead and jump off. You have the vision. That's I envision things. Like I see the end goal. So I don't always know how I'm going to get there, but I see to where I want to get, and having that vision and going.
And that's not really up to us, really, how we get there. It's just, I have this thing where I make a to-do list, and I've really been using it more in the last couple of years. I have my side of the to-do list, and then I have God's side. So on my side, I do all the things I can, and I put all the heavy stuff over there because that's all the house stuff, right? And sometimes I want to pull some of the house stuff back over, but I leave them over there. You talked about, putting it out there. I think, in addition to values and vision, for me, it's really important to have a voice, know your voice, and sometimes discover what that voice is. And you've discovered that yours is being in the community and helping and sharing your story. I've discovered that mine is, helping people to elevate and be more of who they already are. And so these aren't things that are new, right? So I'm not reinventing. When we say reinventing, you're just recreating and expanding more of who you already were in the first place. And so I'm not reinventing myself to be this, this athlete like you, because that's just not going to work. I tried that in 7th grade and I scored 2 points the entire season, so figured that wasn't it for me.
Funny.
But there are levels to how I continue to not only, I figured my thing is connection. So I have a strength in connectedness. So I connect, the dots for people, and I also connect people to other people that can help them, be and do all those things that they want to do, and collaboration. We often look at collaboration like it's this dirty word, but really we get more together when we work together. Because your strengths are going to be your strengths and mine are going to be mine, and there is no competition that way. The only person that I often say I'm competing with is me. And so that being said, there are a lot of people that think about reinventing themselves, and they say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, I like to think if it's not broke, then just upgrade it, because there's always an upgrade to it sometimes. And which kind of brings me to the next thing I want to talk about. Great career in the NFL. You were, retired from that. Great career with Memorial Healthcare System. It wasn't broke, so you didn't, have to fix it, but you've upgraded it, because now we're talking about reinventing yourself. I talked about being a professor. Now you're an author. So take us into that and talk to us a little bit about that project, and share with the audience, when you can and when you feel ready to, how can they find out more about that project that you're
So being an author wasn't a goal of mine. It was being able to give something, a need that I saw in the community with young athletes in particular. I would always be asked to come out and speak to, whether it be elementary students, middle school, high school, college, you name it. And I was a student at a time where we have guest speakers, and sometimes it would go one ear, not the other. But I felt like if I could give these athletes, young athletes in particular, something tangible, and my goal was to start at an early age, so which led to my children's book that we speak of now, and instilling the importance of having a balance on school first and then academics.
Which has been your life.
It was been in my life. So it's not, like, if we go back, it's not reinventing yourself. It's something that was already there, just expanding it. And I see it all the time. When I say there's a need, I will, like me and my wife, we just had our first son. So now my antennas are hitting different things I didn't notice before. And I will go out and see different parents putting pressure on their kids with sports over education. There's a series that I'm watching now on Stars where the parents are saying, yeah, he's going to get us a Ferrari. He's going to get mom a Bentley. He's going to get dad a Ferrari. How is he going to do that? If he, the chances of making it professional are slim to none. Not to deter any athletes.
But let's just be real.
Let's be real. Even if this kid was to become a successful doctor or a lawyer, he's not going to be able to buy a Ferrari or a Lamborghini for his mom. That wouldn't be smart.
Right.
So it's setting the kids up with the foundation of knowing, use sport as a tool.
Yes.
Use sports as a tool to get a college education.
Yeah.
Use sport as a way of networking and building
Right.
relationship in your community. So the book here is for first graders through third graders. It's a simple read. Speaks of a young athlete who has Jason, who has his mind made up that he's going to go pro, so he doesn't feel he has to do any studying.
Yeah.
Doesn't study, gets bad grades. His parents hold him out from sports, which causes his team to lose because Jason's the best player. He picks his stuff up. He starts studying. His second report card, he brings home straight A's. Now he's here to save the day, and it sets the standard for young athletes to see that Jason, he's the best player in his class.
Right.
But if he doesn't have the schoolwork, then it's useless. So
right, and you know that's so important because we could easily believe that all kids are excited to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm blessed that my kids actually love school, but that's not everybody's story, and so that's not why every kid goes to school. So sometimes you have to have things that get them there and keep them excited about going to school. And if it's sports, music, you know, drama, whatever those things are, but it's still important to make sure we tie those things back to why they're there, and that is to learn.
And I speak this, Jason is a football player, but this can relate to anybody. Athlete, any kid who has an extracurricular activity. It has to be a balance.
Right.
And you speak on just letting everyone know the book is available for purchase online. I'll show a picture here. This actually kind of looks like me when I was Jason's age. No grades, no play. Can be purchased online at www.nogradesnoplay.com. I'm doing different school visits. I'm doing different elementary school visits where I'm doing readings and book signings and lectures with the students. Actually, Commissioner Riggs, me and her are going back to my former elementary school, A.C. Perry.
Oh, cool.
And she's going to be getting books for the class, and I'm going to be giving books to the class and doing the reading. So if there's any local elementary schools who are interested in having this message instilled in their students, I'm always open. On my free time, I told my boss on my lunch break, we'll set some time aside.
A career day, right?
A career day, something like that for the kids.
Well, I actually reached out and made a couple connections for you already.
I appreciate it.
So,
I really do.
So we'll talk about that more offline because this is really great. I love the project. I love what you're doing, Ray. As we wrap up our segment, what final words would you give to our viewers? What nuggets of wisdom would you leave with them?
I'm going to take from what we've been talking about the whole time when it comes to reinventing yourself, not recreating yourself, but digging deep of something that finding something that you already had and expanding it. And I think it wasn't, I didn't really think about it until this segment until we spoke offline beforehand, but I feel like that's what I've been doing my entire life and what we all have been doing.
So there, guys, you have it, reinventing yourself. It's not about being a new or a different person, but really digging deep into who you already are and expanding in that, being more of that, sharing that, making that visible for others, because you never know who's watching. And they're watching not because they're haters always, but because they're being inspired. And so on that note, thank you for tuning in to another edition of Beyond Boundaries, and thank you, Ray Shipman.
Thanks so much, Nick, for having me.
Make sure you get the book.
NoGradesNoPlay.com.